The Codex of Dragon Age Origins. Chapter 1 Creatures. Abomination. We arrived in the dead of night. We had been tracking the Maleficar for days, and finally had him cornered. Or so we thought. As we approached, a home on the edge of the town exploded, sending splinters of wood and fist-sized chunks of rocks into our ranks. We had but moments to regroup before fire rained from the sky, the sounds of destruction wrapped in a hideous laughter from the center of the village. There, perched atop the spire of the village chantry, stood the mage, but he was human no longer. We shouted prayers to the Maker and deflected what magic we could, but as we thought, the creature fought harder. I saw my comrades fall, burned by the flaming sky or crushed by the breeze. The monstrous creature, looking as if a demon was wearing a man-like twisted suit of skin, spotted me and grinned. We'd have forced it to this, I realized. The mage had made this pact, given himself over to the demon to survive our assault. Transcribed from a tale told by a former Templar in Cumberland, 884 Blessed. It is known that mages are able to walk the Fade, while completely aware of their surroundings, unlike most others who may only enter the realm as dreamers and leave it scarcely aware of their experience. Demons are drawn to mages, though whether it is because of this awareness or simply by virtue of their magical power in our world is unknown. Regardless of the reason, a demon always attempts to possess a mage when it encounters one, by force or by making some kind of deal, depending on the strength of the mage. Should the demon get the upper hand, the result is an unholy union known as an abomination. Abominations have been responsible for some of the worst cataclysms in history, and the notion that some mage in a remote tower could turn into such a creature unbeknownst to any was the driving force behind the creation of the Circle of Magi. Thankfully, abominations are rare. The Circle has methods for weeding out those who are too at risk for demonic possession, and scant few mages would give up their free will to submit to such a bond with a demon. But once an abomination is created, it will do its best to create more. Considering that entire squads of Templars have been known to fall at the hand of a single abomination, it is not surprising that the Chantry takes the business of the Circle of Magi very seriously indeed. Arcane Horror. Upon ascending to the second floor of the tower, we were greeted by a gruesome sight. A rugged collection of bones wearing the robes of one of the senior enchanters. I had known her for years, watched her raise countless apprentices, and now she was a mere puppet for some demon. Transcribed from a tale told by a Templar in Antiva City, 713 Storm. Demons, of course, have no form in our world. When they enter, either where the veil is particularly thin, or through blood magic summoning, they must take possession of a body. When a pride demon takes control of the corpse of a mage, an arcane horror is born. Although they appear to be little more than bones, these are fierce creatures, possessing not only all the spellcasting abilities of a living mage, but also the capacity to heal and even command other animated corpses. Archdemon. In darkness eternal they searched, for those who had goaded them on, until at last they found their prize, their god, their betrayer, the sleeping dragon Dumat. Their taint twisted even the false god, and the Whisperer awoke at last, in pain and horror, and led them to wreak havoc upon all of the nations of the world, the first blight. Threnodies 8-7. The false dragon gods of the Tevinter Imperium lie buried deep within the earth, where they have been imprisoned since the Maker cast them down. No one knows what it is that drives the Darkspawn in their relentless search for the sleeping old gods. Perhaps it is instinct, as moths will fly into torch flames. Perhaps there is some remnant of desire for vengeance upon the ones who goaded the Magisters to assault heaven. Whatever the reason, When Darkspawn find one of these ancient dragons, it is immediately afflicted by the taint. It awakens twisted and corrupted, and leads the Darkspawn in a full-scale invasion of the land. A blight. Euphemiel was once the Tevinter god of beauty. In ancient times, he was worshipped by musicians, artists, and poets. The Feast of Euphemiel was the grandest celebration of the year, an event that lasted a full 12 days. Plays and entire symphonies were written in his honor. Now, he is a maddened husk of his former self, filled with nothing but a desire to destroy all life. When the first blight began, many brave men and women threw themselves at Dumat, the first archdemon, trying to strike him down. But no matter the numbers, no matter the strength, he would always return. This was proof, some said, of his divine power. But the Grey Wardens soon learned otherwise. Their tainted blood bound them to the archdemon, and they could hear it, feel it, as it died and was born anew, its spirit drawn to possess the nearest tainted creature. The Darkspawn were mindless, soulless, empty shells of the flesh that could be bent and remade in the dragon's image, but a man's soul was not so malleable. When a warden's hand struck a fatal blow against Dumat, the old god's spirit was drawn not to the Darkspawn, but to the man who had slain him. In that moment, the souls of both the warden and the archdemon were utterly destroyed, and the dragon's war rose no more. The blight was over. Ash Wraith. Legend has it that when Andraste's ashes were taken into hiding, some of her closest disciples gave themselves to the fire, that their restless souls might remain to guard her final resting place forever. Whether they are the spirits of Andraste's disciples or merely fate spirits, the temple that houses the sacred urn is filled with wraiths. Created from a burnt corpse, an ash wraith is a powerful and amorphous opponent, able to lash and smother while being immune to most physical attacks. Even if successfully dispersed, it can reform at a later time. Magic is the only real way to fight such a creature, wind and ice attacks being the most useful. They are capable of creating small whirlwinds that are devastating to anyone unfortunate enough to get close, and their touch leaves a person drained. Bear. No beast is more beloved by Dirthaman than the bear. When the world was new, Dirthaman gave one secret to each creature to keep. The foxes traded their secrets to Androil for wings. The hares shouted theirs to the treetops. The birds sold theirs for gold and silver. Only the bears kept Dirthaman's gift. Deep within their dens, they slept the months away, in the company of their secrets and nothing else. When Dirthaman discovered what had been done with his gifts, he snatched the wings from the foxes, silenced the voices of the hares, and turned the birds into paupers. But the bears he honored for their steadfastness. Transcribed from a Dalish tale, 9-8 Dragon. Normally, it is almost unheard of for bears to attack travelers. They are, in fact, so shy and so inactive during the day that most people never encounter a bear at all. However, should a bear be provoked, they are remarkably dangerous. The normally placid-seeming creatures become enraged and can strike massive blows with their paws, capable of knocking a man off his feet. Bronto. There's only two things a noble will step aside for: paragons and angry Brontos. A dwarven saying. This hulking beast was originally bred by the dwarven shepherd as a beast of burden and food source, the rough equivalent to surface oxen and cows. Some versions of Bronto have even been developed as dwarven mounts, valued far more for their sure-footedness and stamina than for their speed. While present within Orzammar in large numbers, some Brontos still exist in packs within the deep roads, having returned to a wild state after the fall of the dwarven kingdoms. They require remarkably little sustenance, consuming organic material from water, fungus, and even rocks. Hence the rock liquor appellation used by many dwarven to describe Bronto. And exists in primarily dormant states until provoked. An angry, charging Bronto is considered to be a rather dangerous opponent. Broodmother. It is well known that Darkspawn carry off those captured in their raids to underground lairs. Most assume that the prisoners are eaten, or somehow tainted and turned into Darkspawn themselves, though this could never account for the sheer numbers of the horde. Forays made by Grey Wardens into the underground have uncovered the answer. When exposed to the Darkspawn taint, men are driven mad and eventually die. Women, however, undergo great pain and gross mutations that cause most of them to perish. Those that survive, however, become the grotesque broodmothers. These giant, twisted behemoths birth many Darkspawn at a time. A single broodmother can create thousands of Darkspawn over the course of her lifetime. Each type of Darkspawn is born from a different broodmother. Humans produce Hurlogs, dwarves produce Genlocks, elves give birth to Shrieks, and from Qunari are born the Ogres. Corpse. To anyone who doubts the wickedness of blood magic, I say, with your own hands, strike down the corpses of your own brothers who have fallen in battle to a Maleficar. Then we may discuss morality. Knight Commander Benedictus in a letter to the Divine. 546 Exalted. The walking dead are not, as superstition would lead you to believe, the living come back for their revenge. They are rather corpses possessed by demons. This shambling corpse, controlled by a demon of sloth, causes its enemies to become weak and fatigued. Corpses possessed by rage demons go berserk and simply wade into their opponents mindlessly. Devouring corpses are held by hunger demons and feed upon the living. The more powerful demons rarely deign to possess a dead host. Deep Stalker. A fool trusts his eyes. A wise man fears every rock is a deep stalker. A dwarven saying. Possibly the strangest of all creatures found in the deep roads is this deep stalker. Tespadam, as the dwarves call them, hunt in packs, generally by burrowing underground and then striking when their prey is in their midst. Stalkers come in several types. Spitters have venom glands and can spit secretion that slow or injure their prey. Jumpers hurl themselves at the targets, knocking them down and making the kill easier. The most common variety scares its prey, leaving the unfortunate victim helpless against the rest of the pack. Desire Demon. In all my studies, I must say that the most intriguing was my interview with the Desire Demon. That the creature was willing to speak with me was a sign that this was no mere monster, mindlessly driven by its nature, but rather a rational being as interested in me as I was in it. It took a form that I would call female, though I had no doubt that it could appear otherwise. I wondered if it appeared as it did because I wanted it to, or because I expected it to. She, and indeed I could only think of her as such now, smiled warmly at me, and laughed a musical sound that seemed to thrill my old heart. So frightened was I of this creature's legendary abilities to twist the hearts of men, and so relieved was I when I looked across the table into her dark eyes. This was a fearsome creature of the Fade, but as I spoke with her I slowly came to realize that this demon was merely as misunderstood as we mages are ourselves. From the journal of former senior enchanter Malias, once of the Circle of Rivain, declared apostate in 920 Dragon. Of all the threats from beyond the veil, few are more insidious and deceptively deadly than the Desire Demon. In folklore, such demons are characterized as peddlers of lust, luring their prey into a sexual encounter, only to be slain at the culmination. While a desire demon can indeed deal in pleasure, in truth they deal with any matter of desire that humans can possess: wealth, power, and beauty, to name a few. Far more intelligent than the bestial hunger and rage demons, and more ambitious than the demons of sloth, these dark spirits are among the most skilled in tempting mages into possession. Many who serve the whims of a desire demon never realize it. They are manipulated by illusions and deceit, if not outright mind control, although these demons are reluctant to resort to such crude measures. Instead, they seem to take great pleasure in corruption. The greater the deceit, the greater their victory. Only demons of pride prove more fearsome opponents when roused. Their abilities to affect the mind allow them to assume disguises and even alter the environment for their purposes, not to mention the great strength and speed they possess if they should have to resort to more physical means. Most often, a desire demon will attempt to bargain its way to freedom if overpowered. Many stories exist that depict mages defeating desire demons to the point where a wish can be wrested from them. It should be noted that in such stories the demon almost always gets the upper hand, even when the mage thinks his wish has been granted. Dragons. Dragonling. Newly hatched dragons are roughly the size of a deer and voraciously hungry. They live for a short time in their mother's lair before venturing out on their own. The slender, wingless creatures are born in vast numbers, as only a few ever make it to adulthood. Drakes. Male dragons never develop into the winged monsters of myth. At most, their forelegs grow the vestigial spurs where wing membrane might have been. Once they have fully matured, males immediately seek out their lairs of adult females. When they find one, they move into her lair and spend the rest of their lives there, hunting for her and defending her young. They will aggressively defend her nest, and many would-be dragon hunters have been lost to their fiery breath and crushing blows from their tails. Dragons. Female dragons take much longer to mature than their male counterparts. They too undergo a metamorphosis of sorts at adulthood, but while males lose the use of their forepaws, females actually grow a third set of limbs, specifically to serve as wings. Young females travel great distances looking for a suitable nesting site. Because of their nomadic habits, these are the dragons most frequently encountered by man. High Dragon. A fully mature adult female dragon is the High Dragon, the great monster of legend, the rarest of all dragonkind. These dragons hollow out massive lairs for themselves, for they need the space to house their harem of drakes as well as their eggs and the dragonlings. High dragons are seldom seen. They spend most of their time sleeping and mating, living off the prey their drakes bring them. But once every 100 years or so, the high dragon prepares for clutching by emerging from her lair and taking wing. She will fly far and wide, eating hundreds of animals, most often livestock, over the course of a few weeks and leaving smoldering devastation in her wake. She then returns to her lair to lay her eggs and will not appear in the skies again for another century. Genlock. These are the most common darkspawn in the underground. Stocky and tough, Genlocks are notoriously difficult to kill, even by magic. Alphas. In any group of Genlocks, there is usually one who is dominant. As the tallest, strongest, and smartest of their kind, Alphas serve as a sort of commander, directing or bullying the others in combat. Emissaries. The most intelligent of the Alphas become gifted sorcerers, with many abilities akin to blood magic. These are the emissaries, and they usually only appear during a blight. Ghoul. What the blight does not destroy, it corrupts. Any creature infected with the darkspawn taint that does not have the good fortune to die outright becomes a ghoul, a twisted shadow of itself. The name originally comes from men, whether human, dwarven, or elven, who became tainted, usually while being held as a captive food source for the darkspawn. They would turn cannibal, preying on other captives, slaves to the will of the archdemon, driven mad by pain. During a blight, the corruption of the darkspawn spreads through the wilder areas of Thedas, and infects the animals found there. This produces grotesque, enraged bears called bearscarn, as well as blighted wolves. Fortunately, ghouls rarely survive their corruption for long. Golem. Once a crucial part of Orzammar's defenses, golems have all but vanished as their secret to their manufacture was lost over 1,000 years ago. What few golems remain are guarded closely by the shepherd, brought out when the battle with the darkspawn grows desperate enough to risk their loss. No one now would sell a golem for any price, but in ancient times dwarves sold many golems to the magister lords of Tevinter. They are devastating weapons in war, living siege engines, capable of hurling boulders like a catapult, or plowing through enemy lines like an earthquake. Hala. No creature is more revered by the Dalish than the Hala. No other animal has a god of its own. These white stags are much larger than the ordinary deer, and the Dalish Hala keepers carve their antlers as they grow, making them curve into intricate designs. In ancient times, these stags bore elven knights into combat, but since the fall of the Dales, they are used less as mounts and more to pull at the Aravels. Herlock. Taller than their Genlock cousins, the Herlocks are roughly of a human size, but are possessed of considerable strength and constitution. The shock troop of the Darkspawn, a single berserking Harlock, can often be a match for numerous opponents at once. They are known to adorn themselves with roughly carved tattoos to keep track of their kills and deeds, though it is unknown whether or not there is a uniform standard to these markings. Alphas. Alpha Herlocks are more intelligent and more skilled fighters, often serving as commanders or even generals. Emissaries. Herlock emissaries have also been known to appear during a blight. These darkspawn are the only ones recorded as being capable of human speech, and are often capable of employing magic. Mabari Warhound. Dogs are an essential part of Ferelden culture, and no dog is more prized than the Mabari. The breed is as old as myth, said to have been bred from the wolves who served Dane. Prized for their intelligence and loyalty, these dogs are more than mere weapons or status symbols. The hounds choose their masters, and pair with them for life. To be the master of a Mabari anywhere in Ferelden is to be recognized instantly as a person of worth. The Mabari are an essential part of Ferelden military strategy. Trained hounds can easily pull knights from horseback or break lines of pikemen, and the sight and sound of a wave of war dogs, howling and snarling, has been known to cause panic among even the most hardened infantry soldiers. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Nug. Hip deep in mad nugs, our screams deafen their keen ears. We will be Nugpoop. From Songs That Only Nugs Can Hear, by Paragon Ebrian, 584 Exalted. The Nug is an omnivore common to the deep roads, a hairless creature that is almost blind as well as completely docile. It spends most of its time wading in shallow pools as well as mud pits, feeding on small insects, worms, and, in a pinch, limestone, and simple metals. Indeed, the digestive system of the Nag is legendary, able to make a meal out of almost anything a Nag finds on the cavern floors. Nags reproduce rapidly, spreading into any niche within the deep roads that they can find, and serve to support a variety of predators, such as giant spiders and deep stalkers. So too do dwarves make meals out of them. Nags are, in the poorer slum portions of Orzammar, one of the most common sources of meat available. Some dwarves even domesticate the creatures, claiming to find the creatures' high-pitched squeaks pleasing. Ogre. Towering over the Darkspawn kin, the massive ogres are a rare sight on the battlefield. Traditionally, they only appear during a blight, but some records claim that ogres have been spotted in the deep roads, hunting alone or in small groups. At least one report by the Grey Wardens claims that an ogre was spotted alone in the Korcari Wilds in 919 Dragon, though it was weakened and easily dispatched. Up to 100 of these creatures can accompany a Darkspawn horde at any one time during a blight, often using their great strength to burst through fortifications and demolish the front lines of the opposing army. They use brute force to charge their enemies like bulls, slam the ground with their fists to shake enemies off their feet, and hurl great rocks into the face of oncoming foes. Melee can be difficult against a giant that snatches a warrior up in one hand, crushing the life out of him or beating him into oblivion with the other hand. The nimble can try to wiggle his way free, or an ally can attempt an array of stunning blows on an ogre to free the comrade in danger. Grey Warden lore urges caution when slaying an ogre, unless it is ensured that they have received a major wound to the head or the heart. It is possible that they are lying dormant and will regenerate to full health within a matter of minutes. During a blight, most Grey Wardens recommend burning all Darkspawn to ashes. Dead ogres in particular. Pride Demon. Let me explain what it is to face a prize demon, my friends. You may scoff and say that our talents exist only to face mages, but you will encounter demons often. They will be summoned by a maleficer and bound to do his bidding, and while at times they will be forced into the possession of a host, they will also face you in their true form. A powerful opponent indeed. Do not underestimate it. Pride is powerful and intelligent. When we have encountered one in its true form, its most common attacks are bolts of fire and ice. Fire they will use to burn an opponent, and the magical flame will combust anything you wear, regardless of make. Ice they will use to freeze an opponent in place. Be cautious, for they enjoy employing this against warriors in particular. More than one group of Templars has made the mistake of attempting to overwhelm a pride demon, and suffer the consequences, believe me. And if you think that having the aid of other mages will assist you, you are wrong. Pride demons can render themselves immune to magic for short times, and are adept to dispelling magic that is cast upon you, as much as we Templars are able to disrupt spells. Think on that for a moment, my friends. Be wary of how prideful you become, lest you find too much in common with such a fiend. Transcript of a lecture given by Veron, Templar Commander of Tentervale, 686 Steel.